Welcome, everyone. We have Coach Sierra Sims in the house. How are you?
Doing great, recovering from Unbound still, but doing good.
We're going to get into how you feel post Unbound, but listeners and watchers, we have a unique episode in that Coach Sierra just got through a pretty incredible race block where she did 3 races at different physiological spectrums, and it consisted of the Winston-Salem Criterium, US Pro Road Nationals, and Unbound, all within a span of, that was 8 days?
Yes, I think so.
Yes. Yeah, and so Coach Sierra is gonna share some numbers with us and talk about how she's feeling after Unbound. Well, let's just start with that, Sierra. How are you feeling?
I'm definitely feeling pretty tired still. I would say sleep is pretty easy to get, but I'll sleep until later in the morning. Even it's Wednesday, so it's been a few days since Saturday, and with the travel, I think it adds on to the feeling of exhaustion after that race. So
Mhm.
I don't think I'm gonna get on the bike until maybe tomorrow or the next day, but I'm still feeling pretty tired and still consuming a good amount of energy from just the big hole I dug myself in. So still tired.
Yeah, yeah, to be expected. You did a lot of work. Speaking of that, let's talk about your Unbound stats first. So finishing time, 12 hours, 25 minutes roughly. What was your OTS from that?
Let's see. Well, my OTS, so I got the first, I think I only missed the last hour of the
Mhm.
of the race, and the OTS was 9:11. So, and I
Yeah.
went pretty hard the last hour. So I think it would have jumped up maybe a good amount after if I got the last hour of that race. But the first 11 hours and 18 minutes was an OTS of 911.
Wow. Well done. That would alone wreck mere mortals. And then that event came after US Pro Road Nationals the previous Monday. And can you share any notable power outputs from that race?
Yes. So within the first hour of that, it was about 3.5 hour road race, a 5 minute power of 337 watts, which was around 120% of my FTP. And that was up the first climb. And then a 7 minute power output of 304 watts on the second climb. And then 10 minutes at 310 watts on the third climb of the circuit. So that's back on the other side of the course. But basically, within the first hour of the race, I had over 20 minutes in in my VO2 zone, which was pretty wild. But it's definitely, I think, just proceeded at that intensity throughout the entire race. So there wasn't any backing off after the first hour.
Wow, that sounds really hard. Yeah. And then tell us about the Winston-Salem Crit. You did that on the Saturday night before US Pro.
Yeah, so it actually worked out really well because we had a rest week into the crit, and so the crit was kind of like an opener for
Mhm.
the road race. And this graph of the crit, it's basically just I don't know how long these climbs were, but you do 2040s or maybe 1050s up each the climb through the finish circuit of the crit.
Yeah.
And let's see, my for an hour and 10 minutes, my X power was 242. And then
Mhm.
the 20-minute peak was 265.
Mhm.
But it was just really punchy, definitely a fun form of openers before the road race.
Fun in air quotes. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So 3 races, 3 different physiological power demands. How did you and Elliot plan for that? Like, you probably made him earn his keep helping you figure out how to accomplish that.
Yeah, he really enjoyed the curveballs. I was like, this is what I'm doing. There's not really an option because of just the team demands. But basically, I think what really helped was deciding early on that Redlands was going to be a big focus. So we did a lot of road style intervals that were in stage racing form of training. So back to back days. And that was prior to Redlands. So there was a ton of volume and high intensity into Redlands. And then after Redlands, we had a rest week. And then at that point, so after doing this kind of high intensity stage race training and then racing, I just had 3 weekends that were like super centralized to where they were going to be an Unbound simulation. And they were mixed in between Speed Week. So I had crit training going on, or crit racing going on, and Unbound training going on.
Wow.
So Redlands, Rest Week, a 22-hour week, a 26-hour week, which I think was Speed Week. So I
Wow.
raced 4 crits, and I did 100-miler and then one 155-miler at the very end of the week.
Didn't you like ride home from the Criterium I saw?
I did. So my teammate,
Wow.
it rained during one of the Georgia crits, and there was no way for her to get home. So I was like, I'll drive you, take my gravel bike. So I drove her to Augusta, and my team who had the car to take me home was in Atlanta. So I had to get there, and they just raced the last crit, and I just didn't race the last crit of the series. And so it was like 155 miles from Augusta to Atlanta. And that
Wow.
was when I did that simulation ride, that was kind of the first time I like realized that I had like a really good chance at Unbound to do well, just because I could put out like a really high power for most of that ride.
Wow. Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
what did your level get up to after that block? And then what was your peak level coming into Unbound?
Yeah, so mid block then it was about 105. So
Mhm.
that was my level. I think that was mid March. And then or mid April, sorry, mid April. And then into Unbound, it had just come down a little bit because we had done like a 12-hour week into the like series of races. So like really came off the like intensity. So then I was at level 100.
Wow. Okay. Nice. And then how many days have you been streaking?
I think it's around 70
Okay.
because there was a day in March where I didn't ride.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice work. All right. Before we move on, can you tell us a little bit about Unbound? I know you were like on a great ride until tell us what happened at mile 40.
Yeah, the typical Flint Hills of Kansas. Basically, we were in this kind of like downhill section of gravel, and there was two very distinct paths on the road. And in the middle it was white, chunky, sharp rock. And there were some people, like riding in it to get around others or move around. But basically, I just got like pushed in it a little bit. And when I got pushed in it, I came out of it really quickly, but it just immediately sliced my sidewall of my back tire about like 2 inches. Um,
Mhm.
so I fixed it up pretty quickly enough to where I like put down, I remember when me and Elliot looked at it, it was like 250 for the next, I put down like 250 watts for the next like 40 or something minutes just to see
Dang.
if I could catch back up. The hope was
Yeah.
still there. Let's just put it that way. And then basically the sidewall just like it kind of just like blew out. So then I had to refix it. And then it just wasn't holding with all of the stuff I had with me. Or I would have to like pull over and patch it, which I was just trying to get to the aid stop. So at mile 70, I put a new tire on my bike. So after the first time doing Unbound, I learned to bring extra tires and have them at the aid stops. So it helped out that I had an extra tire and could throw it on really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So it kind of became a what could have been type of an event for you.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it was really interesting being in like the elite field. It's more like Unbound seems just now being in it for those 40 miles. It's so much more of like a mentally taxing thing because you're hyper aware. It's like even more hyper aware than in a road peloton because of the unpredictability of the terrain.
Mhm.
So I remember being in the group. I'm like, wow, this is like, I think I'm like using so much energy in my brain to just like be hyper aware. And I was like, I'm gonna like use more of my carbs than I expect. Like, thank goodness I like have a little bit extra.
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of what I learned from being able to sit in that group for a while. Cause after that, it was pretty like solo until the end.
Yeah. Yeah. So does that make you think about next year for Unbound or US Pro?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely want to go back. I know that next year, I think I'm someone that does better on the North course since it's more technical and has more climbing. So
Yeah.
I'll be back on the South course, I think, next year, which I've only done the 100 down there. So I think I'll still give it a shot next year, but I definitely learned some stuff and definitely um I think like adjusting also my carb intake if it gets super hot because it's in the 90s. And I've learned more about like how the glycolytic oxidation decreases a lot when it gets hot. So then I think I had like a hard time. It was like around mile 120, just like consuming carbs. And so I should have like altered to something that was a little bit more like starchy or like not as sweet, less sugars. So I think that that's going to be like a couple things at least that I'll change coming next year.
What was your like grams per hour goal target when you came into the race?
I had like 90 to 100 with me.
Mhm.
So, and I practiced with that. So I was like, it took me, this is something that I know like all the coaches at FasCat really emphasize, but it took me all winter to be able to intake that much because I
Yeah.
think I could only intake like 50 to 60 grams prior to that.
Wow.
Just because I, I don't know, I grew up like not, we kind of just like didn't, it was like in an era where we just had water. So I don't think my body was able to like, it wasn't something that I was used to doing. So yeah, but it took like all winter always training with like a high carb intake and
Mhm.
it like worked out because I can stomach it pretty easily now.
That's awesome. Yeah. Excuse me. So something to work on for next year.
Yep, still
Cool.
eating a ton of carbs.
Just yeah. Let me ask you this, moving on from your 3 race block. What's your, especially now, you're 4 days post Unbound. Obviously, you've been getting a lot of sleep. Just generally year round, what's your number one recovery technique?
Yeah, I think I really focus on my protein intake. And so that might be something that's like really simple sounding, but if you like pay attention to how much protein you're intaking, it's definitely probably not enough.
Mm.
I like always have like a pack of protein bars with me that I have just like everywhere I go. So that if we like stop somewhere for lunch, because I think instead of for what we've been doing as like a team and just like being around people, it's like very unpredictable where you're gonna stop or like if we're gonna have like refrigeration and we usually don't have a cooler with us. So what we try to do is go to a grocery store and then you can get like more food. So you can get like multiple different things instead of just like ordering something and getting like a sandwich and that's it. Uh,
Mhm.
so, but I'll always have like protein with me. So I think that's something like even like coming into a race week, I'll like intake a lot of protein. And that can also just be like through protein bars. But that's kind of the biggest thing that's helped me this year, I think, is just like with the amount of volume I'm doing, just like preventing the muscle from eating itself up.
Yeah. That is something I've been paying attention to a lot lately, especially after I recorded the master's training video where I taught myself that, we should be eating between 1.6 grams and 2.0 grams of of protein per kilogram of body weight. And I was like, dang, am I doing that? And it comes out to be like a lot more than you think. And protein bars are incredibly helpful. I've been using a lot of protein powder because you can just like add a scoop to like a recovery smoothie or even a glass of water just to ensure that you're getting it in. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Along those lines, what is like your go-to recovery snack meal when you're on the go like this, when you're not in your kitchen?
Let's see. Well, we usually like when we stop at we get a lot of sandwiches. So, the, at the, I guess like gas stations, but it's really just like Sheets or any of those places that we stop at. We get a lot of sandwiches. So it's a lot of like, there's like a meat and a carb in there. And so that's like very common that we do that all the time. But if we're going to the grocery store, I'll get something with rice, sushi, probably like salty snack with it, like hummus also. Um, a lot of stuff like that. And that's like we like, it just like adds time to stop and get that, but it's better for us to do that than to like prep so far ahead. And then a lot of just like beans and rice and chicken when we have like a host house or somewhere to stay. All like really simple stuff.
Yeah. Nice. With that in mind, do you have a killer set of Tupperware?
Do you have a killer set of Tupperware, Frank?
I do. I bought the complete set, like the 10-piece set from Bed Bath and Beyond. I've been using it for
Oh,
years. Yes.
is it glass or plastic?
I have both. The glass ones they're more durable for the washing, the dishwasher, but the plastic ones are just a little bit more affordable. The Pyrex ones are great.
Yeah. Yeah, I like those a lot.
I don't travel with those, so like if I'm traveling, I bring like the plastic ones.
Yeah, safer.
Yes. Awesome. Well, what's your plan for the rest of the summer?
Well, I'm gonna do a tour of American Dairylands, and then I think I have a couple weeks, and then mountain bike national. So I'll do that. Marathon Natz is I think Monday, and then short track is Thursday, and XC is Saturday.
Wow, you're just like really spreading it around, a little bit of everything.
Exactly. Variety is the spice of life.
That's awesome. Cool. So final question, like as you've done this race block, we're kind of like at this, like the first half of the season is over. That's kind of how I think of like Memorial Day and Unbound. What did you learn? What would you like to share with the athletes you coach and, just the listeners and the watchers out there?
Yeah, definitely. I think learning through the training is like the biggest thing that I've gained from all this, because I was preparing for a stage race, but there was like so many key takeaways that like fed into the next series of events. So having the like variety across it all was like good for me, but it also was like really important to like see the connection between everything and like know the why I was doing everything too is important to me. And then like learning that and knowing how to like, okay, if I'm focusing on like the high intensity and like the capacity of my top end, what would I lack? Which was just like the volume. So then, okay, like I don't need to worry about that anymore. I'll worry about the volume for the next block, and then bring it to Unbound, I think was like the big key. So just like checking the boxes of what you need for a race in your training and not doing them all at one time was really important. So like spreading them out through like months of training was really what helped me prepare, I think, best for this like crazy week I had.
That's awesome. And I presume Elliot helped you out. Coach Elliot, that is, helped you out with a lot.
Yes. I think he had some headaches, but we figured it all out together.
That's awesome. Well, he's too young to get gray hair, but maybe one day.
We're trying to get him to get gray hair faster. I'm just kidding, Elliot.
Fantastic. Well, Coach Sarah, thanks so much for coming on the podcast and sharing all about your mega epic race block. Good luck to you the rest of the summer. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Frank.
Yep. All right. Thanks everyone for listening and watching, everyone. If you liked what Coach Sierra said, head on over to our website, FasCatCoaching.com. You can find Sierra there and you can hire her as your coach. Sierra is available. And of course, Sarah also works in our customer service. And oftentimes, if you have a question, it might be Sarah that's answering you. So thanks a lot for listening. And you know what to do. Work hard, ride fast, have fun. And as always, FTFP.